How do you manage to go out and still eat the foods that you love while at the same time enjoying time with your family and friends? Where you're now next focusing on overall health. You're focusing on, it's not just about weight loss. Weight loss is literally a quarter, not even a quarter, it's like a small pie of your whole body, of your whole lifestyle. It's just such a small portion of it. But when you have this holistic approach where we are emphasizing on your overall health, we're thinking about your cardiovascular health, we're thinking about your lean muscle mass, we're thinking about the foods that you're eating, we're thinking about your balancing out, your mental clarity, we're thinking about your energy levels, we're thinking about reducing your cravings. This is how now we're beginning to focus on this overall health.
Hi, I'm your host, Roseanne Kamal, a certified nutrition coach with a background in psychology. Here on Hey Sugar Podcast, you will learn how to live a healthy and sustainable lifestyle without dieting. I'll be teaching you practical tips that you can incorporate in your unique lifestyle. I am going to help you break any dieting mindset traps and show you that a healthy and sustainable lifestyle is doable. So if you're ready to change your life for good and create a healthy and sustainable lifestyle for yourself, then this is for you. Let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our Hey Sugar podcast, where we empower you, the busy woman, to lose weight and create a healthy and sustainable lifestyle without any painful and or restrictive diets. Now, today's topic is one that's near and dear to my heart, and we are going to be talking about the importance of creating a healthy lifestyle. So we're specifically narrowing it down to why lifestyle is always going to trump any diet for sustainable weight loss practices. Now, this topic is coming up because I don't know what planet you're in. If you haven't heard about the latest weight loss drugs that are taking the world by storm, you probably know a couple of people who are taking them, maybe your favorite celebrities. You probably read about this in the news. And this is why this topic has come up, because a lot of people have asked me about this on our email. A lot of people have asked me about this on my DM on social media at Coach Roseanne. And so I thought, you know what, let us discuss this topic because I want to be able to show you why lifestyle will always trump any form of diets that come up. Because to me, while this, and we're going to go, as the conversation morphs on, we're going to talk more about this as we're moving on. And so what we're going to be doing is I'll be touching on these emerging treatments that are coming up. We're also going to be talking about different diets that a lot of people have done over the years. I know I've been on them. And I will make the case and I will be showing you why you really want to consider focusing on lifestyle practices. Because what studies are going to show you and continue to show us year after year is if you do not make these lifestyle changes, you will continue to struggle with your weight loss. Regardless of any intervention that you do, there's always going to be that bottom line. What are those things that you would need to focus on? Now, why does this matter? Why do we even want to talk about this? Why do we want to discuss this? Now, as I've been coaching my women and as I've coached women over the years, one of the things that I noticed that was coming up for them was there was a mind struggle and a pain that they focused on, or a pain that they felt after having done a certain diet. And I put the word diet in quotes. And in fact, let's first even break this down. What is a diet? Really, a diet is a style or it's a habit of eating. It's a way that you are eating your foods. So there's a habit and a systematic way that you're living your lifestyle. And this is now what is caused the diet. But when you look at it in the day-to-day life, and when we think about diets, we're always thinking about the latest things or the newest things that we can do to help a lot of women lose weight. So diets, there's an association of dieting and weight loss. But really, when I think about diet, for me, I'm always wanting to have you look at a diet as a way to live your life and a way to create a lifestyle that you can sustain with. So that for me is when we talk about diets, that's what it is. So when I was on my own weight loss journey, I looked for different people to help me lose weight because I had figured it wasn't getting it. Like I wasn't getting it. And so the first coach that I had told me I needed to count calories. And so the first thing I looked at was I needed a calculator to count my foods and measure my foods. Count calories actually was the first one. And for me, that just became, it wasn't gonna be long lasting. Like immediately I knew, intuitively I knew that wasn't gonna work for me. Then I had a different coach who she was actually going to do all the counting of calories for me, but I needed to follow the foods that she had me eat. Now, I did that for a month, but I was already struggling because the first thing was she had me eat cottage cheese. I didn't even know what cottage cheese was at that time. And so for me, I couldn't see myself sustaining this long term. Remember that time, my kids were very young. I'd gained excess weight. I had high cholesterol. I'll be talking more about that. And so even trying to measure these calories, I couldn't see it being sustainable. Well, I got to a different coach. This one had me measure my food. And I was a good student. I went and I bought a scale. I brought it home. And as soon as I put it on the kitchen counter to measure my food, it was an immediate no. Like my brain could not be able to fathom. Now, when I look back at all these different things that I tried to do, for sure I know it was God letting me know this is not going to be sustainable. Intuitively, I knew it wasn't going to be sustainable. And so I had to figure something that I could sustain. As a busy woman with 2 young kids, juggling my career. Remember, I lived in Boston that time. Here I am. I'm working. I have the kids. I have to cook. We're doing laundry. Like I was doing it all. I needed something that was simple and doable. And so when we're thinking about weight loss, I'm really coming from a place of knowing because I've been there. And as now I continue to coach women, because y'all know my story, how now I started coaching women. As I continue to coach women, if you don't know my story, go to my old podcasts. You're going to be able to see one of the story where I really like the genesis. And I'll link that episode below. But what happened was, as I started now coaching women, I realized that they came with them a lot of what I call, they're not mental issues, but it's the way they were thinking about weight loss and the way they were thinking about diets. And they carried with them a lot of pain because they wanted to see the results, yes, to lose weight, but in the process, did it have to be so painful? Did it have to be restrictive? And over the years, it's almost like this still continues to be perpetuated by the diet culture around the world, because we're going to be touching on these new latest pills that are out there that a lot of people are now wanting to take on. But that whole thing is perpetuated in the media. And what I see is we're still not addressing the bottom line. We're still not addressing the issues that we need to address. And this is lifestyle changes. Before we go into that, there are a couple of statistics that I would like to highlight. There's a study that was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2020, which showed that about 80% of people who lose weight on a diet regain it within a year. Another study showed that 80% of dieters rebound. Now, a study that was done in the Journal of American Medical Association found that 80% of individuals who lose weight through dieting regain it within 2 years. These statistics still hold true year after year. So now the question becomes, why are we still yo-yo dieting? Why are we still going up and down, increasing that weight, losing that weight? And for me, it is simple, because there's a problem. There's a problem with diets. And so we're going to go through these problems so that you can be able to identify, are you able to pick up any of this? Do you pick up on one of these 10 problems that I'm going to highlight, so that if you maybe find yourself gravitating towards that issue, that's probably all you need to work on. The first issue is this short-term focus. So when you think about diets, most of them have this short-term focus, which is designed to help you achieve quick results and achieve results really quickly. Now, if you know anything about life, you know that nothing comes easy. It's not about getting to the finish line quickly. How many of you know that? And what happens with this short-term focus is it focuses on this rapid weight loss. Like you lose a lot of weight quickly. And what happens is if you're losing this weight very quickly, it most likely means you have started practices that usually will be unsustainable. So either you're going to be cutting out a bunch of food groups. There's a severe caloric restriction where you're eliminating entire food groups. So you might say, okay, we're completely cutting out carbs. We're completely cutting out fat. And what happens for a lot of people is once this diet ends, or you get to the end of yourself, because typically that's what happens. You get to the end of yourself where you're like, man, I can't sustain this any longer. So what happens? You go back to your old habits. And then what happens? You gain the weight back. So that's problem number one, where we're going through that short-term focus. We're not letting our brain think longer. Think along what happens after a month, what happens after 3 months, what happens after 6 months. So think about that. The second thing that's a problem with diets is there's nutritional deficiencies. Now, diets that are going to eliminate entire food groups. So say if you eliminate carbohydrates, what would happen? You might be lacking some fiber in there. Let's say you eliminate all fats. You might be lacking some key vitamins that are very necessary. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, which are important for us. And especially for women, we need fat. Because fat is great, especially women who are childbearing age. You're going to need the fat. You're going to need fat if you're going to need for lubrication of your joints. Fat is great because it also insulates. In fact, right now it's cold in Nairobi as we are recording this. It's really cold. And you know what helps also? A little bit of layer of fat helps insulate from the cold. So don't be afraid of the fat. So I want you to notice that. Number 3, what happens is when we go on diets, we mess our metabolism. I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, my metabolism has been messed up. What happens? All it means is when we reduce our caloric intake too low, our body becomes efficient at functioning at using lower calories. Now, what this does is it now begins to slower your metabolism, and this therefore makes weight loss harder. It makes your weight loss hard because you have lowered your metabolism. And then the minute you resume or you begin to eat normal foods, your body now, because remember your metabolism has been lowered, guess what it does? It begins to store more fat, which leads to more weight gain. So this whole effect of we are yo-yo dieting, I want you to begin to notice what it does to your metabolism. It also affects our psychological impact. There's psychological impact. Now, this one is very important to me because you guys know I like to infuse psychology and nutrition. And these are the things that really, in my opinion, drive our behaviors. And so it can lead to an unhealthy relationship with food. They've seen a lot of women just be guilty after eating food. I can see a lot of women just feeling shame after eating some foods and feeling like a failure because you have broken the rules. You've got to understand this. When you're following a diet for a bunch of people, you're sort of put in a box, right? So you've been put in a box, and when you're put in a box, you're told to follow certain rules. Now, because we are human and because you've adapted and because over the years, you've probably eaten some foods that you've enjoyed, the minute you break a rule, and I put that in quotes, the minute you break a rule, what happens? There's guilt associated to it. There's shame. There's failure. And so what this does is it contributes and continues to contribute to these disordered eating behaviors. And so we're going to find things like we're binge eating. You'll find people becoming anorexic where they're not even eating. Or you just find people who they just begin to develop eating disorders. And these are the things that a lot of people do behind the scenes where nobody else can see. So I want you to recognize that this is just it's not about a look, but can you begin to see how it's affecting other areas of our lives? So this is the psychological implication that can also happen. Then we have the social isolation. Now, I remember there's a client of mine who, actually not even just one, but this one comes to mind, like top of mind, where she was doing a certain diet. And she loved hanging out with her friends, going out for brunches, going out for picnics, just hanging out with them. And what she used to do is she would either go to those functions and would not eat what everyone else was eating. Or if she would go, because she had to eat certain foods measured at to the precision. In fact, she said food was like medicine. She had to either carry those foods in a cooler so that she could eat when her time came, so she wasn't eating with the people, so she would have to isolate herself, go eat, or when everyone else was eating, she wouldn't eat. And I remember, and she was just letting me know, my God, this was so hard. Because yes, I wanted to achieve this goal, but not at the expense of not hanging out with people. So I need you to understand how all these diets are going to affect you at the expense of looking a certain way. And when you think about us as human beings, we are social beings. We like to hang out together. Food actually connects us. food connects us. And I'll be showing you how it's going to connect us, right? And how you should not be isolating yourself because you want to hang out with people or because you want to look a certain way. It's really important that we are doing this together. Another problem that I've seen is loss of lean muscle mass. You guys know I talk about lean muscle mass all the time, and I will keep talking about it till the cows come home. Listen, one of the things, especially as we're getting older, once you hit 30 years old and above, we begin to lose 1% of our lean muscle mass. Now, muscle is a metabolically active tissue, and you need muscle because muscle actually helps you burn fat. Now, for most of these diets, which tend to focus on caloric restriction or reducing certain calories, what happens and what a lot of people don't know is when we step on the scale, we get so excited when we see those numbers come down, and we get so excited because we've lost weight. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, the weight that we are losing, while yes, we are losing fat, which is what a lot of people want to lose. In fact, let me ask you that question. When you want to lose weight, what do you want to lose? I know there are certain numbers, but what we're saying we want to lose is we want to lose that fat, isn't it? Like you want to be able to, look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I look good. You want to be able to wear some clothes and not have fat bulging. That's what people have told me when you write to me on my social media platform at Coach Roseanne. That's what they say. Roseanne, I want to be able to wear clothes, and I don't want to hide my body in bigger clothes. I don't want to see I don't want to see fat bulging in my stomach. Those are the things that a lot of us women have struggled with, and we say. But when we're saying we want to lose weight, that's really what we want to lose. We want to lose fat. So I'm actually also educating you in the process, because what happens is when we go on these food diets that reduce our calories so much, is we actually tap into lean muscle mass. And muscle, being a metabolically active tissue, can further slow down your metabolism, making your long-term weight maintenance much more challenging. So I want you to focus not on just losing weight. Specifically, I don't want you losing your lean muscle mass, okay? And how we're going to do that, I will show you in the bottom, but part of that is making sure that you are eating enough protein and you're focusing on strength training. Then another problem when we go on diets is these hormonal imbalances, you guys. A lot of these restrictive diets, particularly those that involve severe caloric restriction and elimination of macronutrients, which you've talked about, are going to affect macronutrients, things like fat, will definitely affect hormones like ghrelin, like leptin, and insulin. All these are going to be affected, which is going to lead to more increased hunger, more increased cravings, and difficulty maintaining weight loss. Are you seeing how this is not just about a look? Are you seeing how your body is getting affected? Your metabolism, your hormones, your psychology, all these things are getting affected when we go through this process of diet restriction. And this is because there's a lack of sustainability. That's my 9th point. Because most of these diets will be difficult to maintain because of their restrictive nature. And because they are restrictive, they are not going to be sustainable. Whether you're eating chicken and broccoli and that's all you need to eat every day, every night, whether it's you're not eating your favorite foods, whether it's you're abandoning hanging out with family, there's a lack of sustainability in that approach. And this is now when you're going to begin to see that yo-yo dieting and that yo-yo effect, that up and down. You lose the weight, you gain the weight, you lose the weight, you gain the weight, because there's no sustainability. And this is now where a lot of women struggle, because we are lacking point number 10, individual approach. Because you need to focus on your own individual needs. You've got to understand this. You and I grew up in completely different lifestyle circumstances. Maybe we grew up in different countries. Maybe we grew up eating different foods. Maybe because of our religious affiliations, we all eat differently. We're allowed to eat different foods. Because of our likes and our preferences, we're going to choose to eat different foods. Our metabolism, our height, there's all these different factors that are going to affect you. And so for most of these diets, they neglect to address your individual needs, which you want to address those individual needs. The more you do this, you're going to notice you're not going to be as frustrated. You're going to adhere more. There's going to be a level of adherence because you know why? You're choosing. You're in freedom. You can make the choices that you want. And ultimately, you're going to notice that you become much more healthier because mental health is one of those things that I've also seen. It's affected a lot of women because there's a lot of pressures to conform to certain diet cultures or to conform to achieving and looking at a certain way. You know, as a child who grew up in the 90s, one of the things is I would look in the magazines and I would see all these thin people who didn't look anything like me. And because of the diet culture, the magazines, the newspapers, the movies, they pushed a certain look. It really brought on a lot of issues like, my goodness, how am I supposed to look that way? And I've been built differently. And you know what I love now in this day and age? Right now we're recording this podcast, we're in 2004. But I'll tell you, over the last couple of years, a lot of people are beginning to shun off all what the media has been pushing over the years. Because people are recognizing we're different, we're individual, we're created differently. And I love that because even our kids now are now saying, listen, you guys, I don't know what you grew up in, but this whole thing about body image, positivity, we gotta embrace that. And we have to embrace our bodies and embrace who we are and how we look like. Because what has happened over the years, frankly, is what we're now trying to break and trying to teach you people, you who's watching, and the younger generation to really recognize that if we love ourselves the way we've been built, the way we've been created, and begin to individualize these foods and focus on whole foods most of the time, I promise you, you are going to have a better relationship with food, a better relationship with your body, and you're going to just have a healthy and a sustainable lifestyle. And so what are the solutions? Because once we go through the problems, because it's really important to understand what the problems are, now let's go through the solutions, because you want to be able to have tangible things. And for me, it's about helping you and giving you the tangible solutions that are going to give you that healthy and sustainable lifestyle. You guys know I've been able to achieve this. I started my weight loss journey over 20 years ago now. I've been able to keep my weight off, keep my cholesterol numbers low. And so I want to be able to have that long-term thinking that is going to help you. And so the first thing is to think about long-term success. Think long-term. So this is not about short-term. When we begin to think long-term, we're now beginning to think, what are the sustainable methods you can begin to apply on a day-to-day basis that are going to be manageable, that are going to be, you can gradually maintain over time, that are going to help you see the results that you need to see, that are going to give you that higher likelihood of keeping your weight off long-term. This is not about short-term results. And what this is, it's simply a mind shift. You're thinking differently. You're now saying it's not about short-term, it's about long-term. And so when you begin to think that way, this is the part that I'm telling you, and I want you to even begin to notice it. The minute you make that shift and you begin to think that way, I promise you, that's when your change starts. Your change starts in that moment. You may not see it that day, but I'm telling you, that's when it changes. Because the first thing you're going to notice an inner pressure. You're going to notice that relaxation happening on the inside. That's a change. You may not see it, but you're going to notice it. Why? You no longer have the pressure to want to look a certain way short term. Because what this short term thinking does, it causes you to behave a certain way. But now that we are thinking long term, you're also going to think differently, but what's more powerful is how you show up. You're going to show up much more differently. And that right there, you'll notice there's no more pressure. So you're not going to be snapping at your kids, snapping at work. You know why? Because that's what's happening on the inside. You've been snapping all along because you want to see these changes happening quickly. But now what we're doing is we're saying, no, it's about long-term success. So that's the first thing. The second thing, we're going to focus on balanced nutrition. Now, with a holistic approach, which is what I encourage you to do, holistic approach just means we're focusing on a balanced diet, that all your macronutrients are included. What are macronutrients? Your three main food groups that are needed to help you create a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. We're talking about your protein, we're talking about your fat, we're talking about carbohydrates. So we have these food groups that are included in your diet. Then we also have your vitamins and your minerals, and we have your water. Once you start looking at it this way, it ensures that your body now is beginning to receive the right nutrients, which is going to help it function optimally, and it's going to reduce the risk of any diseases or anything that might promote an unhealthy body. So we are eating a balanced nutrition. That's the second thing. Number 3, we're focusing on improving your metabolic health. Now, when we focus on metabolic health, we're really now focusing on the whole body. So it's not just about how you look, but now we're thinking, if I want to feel good, what do I need to do? Move your body more, exercise more. So we're focusing on more the things and the steps to take to give you a good body. So there's more movement where you're exercising more. You also have good nutrition. There's adequate nutrition, because what this does is it helps prevent what's known as metabolic adaptation, where your body becomes more efficient at conserving energy, making it harder to lose weight. So we're now working with your body, not against your body. And this happens when you move your body more and you're exercising more. This is going to give you that good, healthy body. And then our mental well-being. I think we talked about that earlier. For me, when you think about mental health, it's an integral part of the process, because what this does is it's going out to begin to encourage you practices like mindfulness, just being mindful. Remember when I said that you're going to reduce that internal pressure and you're no longer snapping at people at work, etc. You know what that is? You're now being more aware. You're becoming more mindful. You're no longer stressing. So you're now able to manage your stress better because you're not restricting yourself. You're now having a better relationship with food. You're having a better relationship with yourself and with your body. And when you do this, you're now beginning to create the habits that puts you in a path where we're now working on reducing or at risk of developing any eating disorders or any unhealthy obsession with your weight and or with your body. This is mental well-being. So we're now beginning to cultivate a positive relationship with our bodies. The next thing, when we think about long-term sustainability practices, we're now reducing the element of being a perfectionist, and we are now focusing on being consistent. So consistency over perfection. When you reduce the internal pressure, when you reduce the need to want to see results overnight, what happens? You simply become more consistent in taking the right approaches. You're taking the necessary steps. You're also recognizing setbacks are a part of the problem, are a part of the journey rather, because that's how life is. Like, really think about it. Why do you have to be so hard on yourself when you fall off? Just recognize it's simply a setback. You simply now become aware, I was a little too hard on myself yesterday. When we went out, I probably ate a little bit more than I should have. Now you simply become aware and you recognize it's not about being perfect, but how do I become consistent instead? Because for a lot of people who've been perfectionists, and I put perfectionists in quote, what they do is when things are not perfect, there's a lot of people who just like give up. They're like, you know what, this ain't working, we're just going to give up. But instead, we're going to say, let's recognize this is simply a part of the journey. And I'm going to encourage myself to really become more resilient. And I'm going to work on adapting and recognizing, yes, if I overate yesterday, how can I make better choices tomorrow or the next time that we go out? And then be like, you know what, girl, it's simply a part of the process. And it's about the long-term view, not this short-term view. Next, it's about personalizing the approach. When we're now looking at this lifelong journey that we're on, okay, how does it work for me? How do you make it work for you? And it's simply recognizing that your needs are unique, your needs are different, your preferences are different, and your lifestyle is different. So, how do we make this lifestyle fit you? How do we let it fit your unique needs, your preference, your lifestyle? So for instance, if you're one of those that hangs out with your friends, okay, we're going to continue that because we're thinking about sustainability. Remember, we're thinking about this 20 years down the road, right? If you're going to be hanging out with your friends 20 years down the road, let's figure how to make sure that we're going to be able to make this lifestyle work. So if it's going out, let's say you go out, how do you manage to go out and still eat the foods that you love while at the same time enjoying time with your family and friends. That's how you begin to look at it. You're now beginning to personalize it so that it becomes your unique approach, where you're now next focusing on overall health. You're focusing on, it's not just about weight loss. Weight loss is literally a quarter, not even a quarter, it's like a small pie of your whole body, of your whole lifestyle. It's just such a small portion of it. But when you have this holistic approach where we are emphasizing on your overall health, we're thinking about your cardiovascular health, we're thinking about your lean muscle mass, we're thinking about the foods that you're eating, we're thinking about your balancing out, your mental clarity, we're thinking about your energy levels, we're thinking about reducing your cravings. This is how now we're beginning to focus on this overall health. So when we're thinking about a lifestyle, that's what we're thinking about. And when we're thinking about those things, we're now thinking about how do we reduce chronic diseases. Now, you guys know I had high cholesterol. When I was 29 years old, y'all, 29, like who has cholesterol when they're 29 years old? That thing like really shocked me, man. To this day, it still like boggles my mind. And so it's understanding what are the things and practices I need to do to begin to eat foods that are going to help me. And that's what now we're going to be talking about. You want to make sure you have your proteins in there. You want to make sure you have your vegetables, fruits and vegetables. Have these wholesome carbohydrates that are going to be coming from foods like rice, like sweet potatoes, like potatoes. So wholesome foods that are coming from the earth. Because I can hear you saying, so Roseanne, what should we eat? Simply, I want you to look at a farm, look at a garden. What's in there? Eat more of those foods and reduce more of those foods that you're going to see in a supermarket. Reduce foods that are packaged. So I want you to think about more foods from a farm. This is going to help promote you becoming much more healthier when we're focusing on those things. Having a positive relationship with food. This is one of those things that's going to impact sustainability in fat loss. It's about making sure you're having a positive relationship with food. So no foods are off balance. Right? So I know a lot of people like I always say, you can eat your carbohydrates. Yes, you can. You can eat carbohydrates because they've had a bad relationship with those foods. So how do we then foster and create a good relationship with food? If let's say, in fact, let's hone in on that one. Let's say for you, that's been your biggest issue. The issue here is the way you view carbohydrates, the way you see them. And the minute psychologically, in fact, let me ask you a question. How many of you know that how many of you, let's go back to a 2-year-old, where if you know either you have a 2-year-old, had a 2-year-old, a 2-year-old nephew, niece, the minute you tell them, no, don't do that thing, what do they do? What do they do? You know they're going to do that thing you told them not to do, isn't it? So now think about it. Here I am saying, let's not eat carbohydrates. That proverbial 2-year-old comes up screaming and kicking. And she's like, Yani, I've been told not to eat carbs. Okay. You know what happens? There's a rebellion part of us. Okay. All of us human beings, it's like, you say, no, excuse me, why? Me, I'm going to eat them. Imagine I will eat them. And what happens is you may be able to do that temporarily. But because of that relationship and that proverbial 2-year-old that is in us, you will eat, or you will then find yourself overeating them, and that's where the balance goes off. So what we want to do is, can you cultivate a better relationship with those foods? And so the question might be, how do I do that? Simply have them, but have them in moderation and have with everything else. So we're not saying that that's all you're going to eat. Can you eat them, but enjoy them in moderation? Imagine, is it that simple? It's that simple. It is that simple. And then it's really important. The last point that I want to share with us as we are about to close down is to ensure that you are empowered. It's really important that you are empowered. Empowered by understanding, number one, understand what are the things that make you tick. Are you an emotional eater? Meaning, when let's say your boss is a jerk towards you, you find yourself using food, understand what that is for you. Is it maybe that you find yourself controlling too many issues and people are not helping you? Understand what that is for you. A lot of the women that I work with, what I realize is we have so much on our plate that you probably are not delegating enough. And maybe that's all you need to do. So there's a lot of stress in your life. And so if you have a lot of stress, you find yourself using food. So empowering yourself just simply means I want you to understand who you are, understand yourself, learn yourself. Because the more you learn yourself and you understand what makes you tick, what makes you overeat, these are the things that are going to help you begin to become healthier. So for some women, it would be delegating more. So that means, okay, if it's in the office, instead of me taking on all the jobs, can I give somebody? That's one thing. It could be someone, maybe it's at home. You and your husband maybe are having some, your login heads, and you probably don't speak up. This is the time to begin to speak up and say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not going to allow you to do this anymore. It could be maybe with your girlfriends. They probably have you do all their planning and maybe you don't like to do it. Or maybe you're good at it and maybe you resent them. I don't know. Figure what that is thing for you, because the inner world is what drives the outer world. In as much as we're focusing on the food, I know for sure that a lot of us who struggle with our weight, we're struggling, we're looking at it from the physical, but really what we want to do is we want to go back in. So I want you to empower yourself to get to know yourself better. The more you know yourself, the more you're going to be able to act on taking those actions. So those are my 10 tips. 10 tips on the problem, 10 tips on what to do. And then we're going to touch on right now on this latest diet. You've heard, and you guys let me know in the comments below if you want me to do like a whole episode on this, because I know it came up. But we've probably heard about the latest pills, right? Semaglutide, Ozempic, the Wegovys, etc. Now, in as much as we're beginning to see both sides, I always like to look at the pros and the cons. Now, I will say this. Every study, even as you read about these weight loss drugs, the doctors will tell you that even as you're taking them, you really must do the lifestyle. You really must do the work. This is not a magic pill. And the reason it's not a magic pill is because those who are not doing the lifestyle will gain and have gained the weight back. Now, the semaglutide is really, these drugs are drugs that were initially for people who have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And these drugs, the people with type 2 diabetes, they had, and they have an ingredient in them that targets what's known the insulin receptors in the body, GLP-1 in the body. And what they do is they reduce your cravings and they lower the emptying process, the digestive tract emptying process. That's what they do. So for the people who are taking these drugs, they usually tend to be less hungry and not eat enough. So it naturally forces people to eat lower calories. As it does that, what has happened is the people who have now lost this weight is they then find themselves not just losing the weight, but there's a lot of issues that have come along with this. One of those issues that has been found has been gastric issues, paralysis of your gastrics. There's been nausea associated with this. There's been a lot of bone density and a muscle loss for a lot of people who have been taking these medications. So these are just some of the side effects that a lot of people are seeing. Now, while we're seeing what's happening outside, what research is also beginning to show is that these medications, if you use them long term, for a lot of people, they're actually even showing effects on on things like even your pancreas. So it's really important, do your research. Why are you doing this? And it's okay, by the way, remember, you have the option to do what it is that you want to do. But it's also important that you become, you notice yourself. Remember in the beginning, I said notice yourself. If you're one of those people that hops from diet to diet, really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, is this another diet that I'm doing? Because the key to sustain these weight loss drugs and to sustain that weight loss, and to sustain your weight loss, you must practice the lifestyle. The lifestyle, regardless, is what you got to do. Not only are these drugs super expensive, I mean, they cost up to almost $800 a month, which means they're not available to a majority of the public. Number two, these weight loss drugs, there's a lot of drugs that are now coming up that are mimicking the old drugs. So we don't even know what a lot of people are taking. Unfortunately, we've even had some people who've died as a result of taking these drugs. So it's really important that you ask yourself the cost through which you are willing to put yourself through to lose this weight. And I'd encourage you, again, go back and re-listen to this episode, because for me, it's about this holistic approach. Because if now we're looking at these weight loss drugs and what they're doing is, yes, they're helping mimic our GLP-1 in the body, which, by the way, you can mimic GLP-1 with food. Eat more fiber, eat more protein, you will release GLP-1, that hormone that's been released in these drugs. What you now want to do is you really want to ask yourself, what am I, or what are you willing to do? And a couple of things you want to do, because with these drugs, a lot of people are losing lean muscle mass. Then if you're going to be taking them, make sure you're doing strength training. If you're not eating enough fiber, make sure you eat enough fiber. If you're not enough protein, make sure you eat enough protein. You really want to assess yourself, because it's really about looking at the lifestyle changes that you're making. Bottom line, your lifestyle will trump any drug, any diet, because these are not to be used long-term. These are to supplement, to help you short-term. But for you to be able to do that, you really want to be able to focus on your lifestyle. All right. I hope this episode has been helpful. Please let me know what's been your biggest takeaway from today's episode. Please share with me below. And remember, it's all about long-term changes. This is not about quick fixes. And if you want to talk more with me, comment below. Let me know. You can also follow me on our social media platform at Coach Roseanne, on TikTok at Coach Roseanne, literally Facebook, everywhere at Coach Roseanne. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. What's been your biggest takeaway? Let me know below. Thanks all for joining us. And as always, remember, you've got one life